Kizuna is a weak idiot who enrolls in a magical academy to train. However, when he discovers his sausage can give strength to magical girls, he starts clapping every girl in sight to make them overpowered. It all starts inside a high-tech chamber, where Kizuna is clapping his comrade, Himekawa, to boost her depleting energy levels. After her tankers are filled with his mayonnaise, Himekawa reaches maximum strength, and they walk out of the chamber together. They are immediately confronted by Yuri and her gigantic knockers, and she teases them for being naughty in the middle of a war. But Himekawa gets furious and explains that she only agreed to get intimate with Kizuna because it was important for the mission. Just as Himekawa gets ready for battle, a robot monster crashes down and starts attacking them, but another comrade named Yin comes to their rescue. She then pulls Kizuna inside the chamber and demands some backshots from him. Kizuna is hesitant at first, but Yin claims that she needs to unlock her maximum strength in bed to win this battle. Before Kizuna started to use his pickle as a power bank, he was on a train, recalling how his mother dumped him like a garbage bag when he was young. Suddenly, he receives an email from his elder sister, Rari, informing him that he is now admitted to Ataraxia Academy, a defense facility that has been training people to fight against the alien invasion. The following day, Kizuna arrives at the academy and asks Rari why he is here despite having bad grades. But when Rari claims that she needs him in his heart hybrid gear immediately, Kizuna reluctantly agrees to help her. While heading to the headquarters, he gets lost on the way and notices Yin staring into the distance. However, when she notices him glaring at her melons, she immediately confronts him. After roasting Kizuna's noodle arms for an entire minute, Ayina introduces herself as a student from Class 2A and tells him to get on his knees and worship her. Just then, sirens go off everywhere, indicating an alien attack on the academy, but Kizuna believes it's a false alarm. However, Yin explains that there are no false alarms in Ataraxia and starts revealing herself to activate her hybrid gear, making the simp extremely flustered. However, Yin reveals her fighting armor called Zeros underneath and activates the transformation. But before she marches into the battle, the system informs her that her battery is running low and asks her to be careful. Suddenly, a Magitech robot charges right towards them, so Yin pulls out a dumb-looking gun, and the fight begins. In just a few seconds, the entire academy is on high alert, and the border defenses are also activated. When Kizuna catches up with Yin, she explains that attacks like this are common in the academy and urges him to get back to safety. While Yin leaves to fight off the alien robots, Kizuna remembers how his mother called him an absolute failure with no talent. Determined to prove her wrong, Kizuna tries to activate his heart hybrid as well. But just then, a giant Magitech robot creeps up behind him. The monster prepares to vaporize this loser, but a well-rounded Himekawa comes to his rescue, wondering what an outsider is doing in the middle of a war zone. Just then, another academy warrior named Yuri arrives and starts mocking Himekawa for being naughty in the middle of a battle. But Himekawa dismisses the accusation, and the girls fly off, telling him to get back to safety. Meanwhile, Yin has been cornered by robot monsters and a giant enemy mothership. But before she can defeat the robots, her heart hybrid runs out of battery, and she falls straight into the ocean. Seeing this, Kizuna remembers how his sister always believed in him and decides to activate his heart hybrid called Arrows. He then lunges into the air and grabs Yin, only to crash land into the forest. Seeing her in a battered state, Kizuna tries to shake her awake, but just then, Rari calls him using Yin's communication system and tells Kizuna to apply pressure on Yin's milk containers if he wants to save her life. Kizuna gets paranoid about this bizarre revival technique, but Rari explains that this is a standard practice and asks him to follow her lead. He then examines Yin's body like a doctor from Thailand and also inspects every curve and corner available. Just then, Kizuna hears a massive blast nearby and realizing they have no time to waste, waterboards himself with her floodgates to speed up the process. Yin finally regains consciousness, but Rari orders him to continue fondling with increased grip strength. As Yin gets up feeling energized, he explains that the heart hybrid gear is charged by the power of love. When Kizuna asks Yin if she is okay, the girl takes a quick glance at herself and throws a powerful punch at him, launching him into the air. Yin believed that he was being a creepy simp, but she realizes that her body feels lighter, and her hybrid count is back to its maximum capacity. While Kizuna lies unconscious, Yin calls Rari for more information. But just then, she notices a swarm of robot monsters in the sky and activates her Zeros once again. She then marches right at them and takes out a giant Magitech before exterminating the entire squadron in just a few seconds. While Kizuna watches her in awe, Yuri and Himekawa join her in the sky, but the enemy mothership retreats. They ask Yin how she was able to fight so viciously, and Yin looks to Kizuna for answers. Meanwhile, the principal and the high commander of Ataraxia, Rari, declare that they've taken the first step, and even though they are far from their goal, the dream of retaking the lost world has now become a reality. The following day, Rari addresses all the students about the history of alien invasion, 15 years ago, a wormhole appeared in the skies everywhere, allowing countless otherworldly beings from different dimensions to enter Earth. Since the human military factions were no match for their alien technology, they suffered a humiliating defeat. Rary explains that the wormhole vanished 2 weeks after the invasion, and at first, the danger seemed to have passed. But the portals opened 6 months ago and started wreaking havoc, allowing only a few people in ocean floats to survive. Rary adds that the invasion is still happening, and during this time, they have developed a modern weapon called Heart Hybrid Gears that are capable of fighting the otherworldly beings. As the High Commander of Ataraxia, Rary announces their elite fighting crew called Amaterasu, comprising Yuri, Himekawa, Ayin, and the limpy loser Kizuna. It turns out that Rary has found a way to make the Heart Hybrid Gears even stronger using her brother's gooning abilities. She then shows everyone a video of Kizuna fondling Ayin, making Himekawa furious, as she is the leader of the Academy's disciplinary committee. However, Rary claims that Kizuna was successful in restoring Ayin's heart hybrid by pleasuring her, and asks all the members of Amaterasu to do lewd things with Kizuna if they want to increase their powers. The crowd goes nuts hearing this, but Rary adds that anyone interested in joining Amaterasu must get frisky with her brother. The next day, Kizuna is woken up by a naughty Ayin, who wants to get her bread chopped to increase her power. Kizuna gets embarrassed and tries to refuse, but suddenly, they are interrupted by Himekawa, who accuses him of being a serial womanizer. Ayin claims that she was the one who jumped on top of his monster truck, but Himekawa has had enough and transforms into her Neros form. Ayin also activates her Zeros, and the two get into an intense fight, resulting in a massive explosion. All the other girls in the class gossip about how the commander allowed a boy to live in the girls' dorm, but they realize they are too stupid to go against Rary. Hearing this, Yuri tells them not to judge Kizuna by his appearance because he might be packing a bazooka underneath. When Kizuna finally enters the classroom, Yuri approaches him and offers herself in exchange for increasing her heart hybrid capabilities. Just then, a small girl named Sylvia enters the classroom and informs Kizuna that the commander wants to see him. Sylvia then takes him on a tour of the academy, where Kizuna sees a picture of his mother, Nayuda, who was the founder and lead contributor in developing the heart hybrid gear. They soon enter a lab, where Rary introduces Kizuna to the chief engineer named Shikina, who uses a computer voice feature to communicate with him. She then gives Kizuna a mobile phone that has a database of all Amaterasu members' hybrid count. Rary explains that once the hybrid count goes below 5%, the fighter's gear falls apart. So Kizuna is tasked with clapping his team members' dumpers to restore their hybrid counts. She also reveals that natural recovery takes a long time, so Kizuna should be prepared to goon at all times. While he listens in utter disbelief, Rary declares that the fate of humanity now rests on his shoulders and also appoints him as the captain of Amaterasu. Sylvia will act as his assistant at all times, and the girl seems to love this fatherless behavior on campus. Later that day, Amaterasu is tasked with their first mission to gather data from a nearby island and bring it back safely. She then tells Yuri to be careful because her hybrid count is at 20%, but the blonde fighter assures Rary that the island is totally safe. Moments later, they arrive at the island and set up their machines to collect data, which will take a few hours to complete. So Yuri drags Kizuna away from the other girls to collect samples and also get to know each other. As they chat, Kizuna reveals that he has never been in a fight before and admits feeling a little overwhelmed. But just then, a massive portal opens in front of her, and a giant Magitech walks out of it. Yuri immediately gets into position and activates her heart hybrid gear called Kuros, and with one strike, defeats the Magitech. While Kizuna tries to contact the others, they realize that all communication has been cut off. But just as they prepare to leave, they notice a platoon of Magitech walking out of the portal. On the other hand, Ayik and Himekawa are trapped inside an alien dome, and none of their attacks seem to work against it. Yuri tells Kizuna to regroup with Aika and Himekawa, and he dashes away like a total buffoon. But he realizes that Yuri's hybrid count is dropping rapidly and gets worried about her safety. A few moments later, Yuri's count has dropped to 6% and her gear is about to fall apart. But just then, an Grade Magitech called the Draggery emerges from the portal. Yuri desperately fires her weapon at the monster, but she realizes that her hybrid count has dropped to 4%, causing her gear to fall apart. To make matters worse, the Draggery prepares a lightning beam to eliminate her, but Kizuna channels a shield in front of her and takes the hit. When the blonde asks why he risked his life to save her, Kizuna tells her that he cannot let his teammates suffer alone. He then extends his arms to tickle Yuri's Unga Bungas, causing her eyes to glow and her dumpers to release fluids. In just a few seconds, Yuri's hybrid count reaches its maximum capacity, and Kizuna loses his consciousness. But when he opens his eyes, he is shocked to find that Yuri is up against the massive Draggery, and she defeats it with a single powerful attack. This enables Ayin and Himekawa to be free from the alien dome, and the connection between the two groups is also restored. While the girls ask for details, Yuri happily reveals that she experienced a climax and managed to activate her heart hybrid with Kizuna. Himekawa seems to be disgusted by this information, but Yin feels jealous that Kizuna's sausage was hijacked. Back in the academy headquarters, Shikina reveals how dangerous the island has been lately, and Rari blames herself for sending Yuri into the battlefield without assessing the threats properly. Later that evening, Kizuna goes back to his room to find Yin on his bed, demanding some friction immediately, but Yuri barges into the room, hoping to practice jujitsu with him. As Yin and Yuri argue about who gets to spread themselves first, Himekawa walks into the room, resulting in a heated battle between the girls. Following day, Yin is practicing fighting the Magitech in the academy compound, earning admiration from everyone watching her. But when Kizuna praises her skills, Yin gets annoyed because even his compliments are rotten like the sacks below his belt.
Emotional damage!
Meanwhile, Himekawa and Yuri are up against multiple Magitech dummies and easily defeat them, making the engineers proud of their academy's frontline fighters. Back in the headquarters, Rari realizes that the Heart Hybrid Gunning ceremony has really increased both Yuri and Yin's powers. She then tells Shikina to proceed with the plan, wondering what her mother, Dr. Nayuta, would do in this situation. After school, Yuri runs up to Kizuna and asks if he liked her performance during the training exercise. When he assures her that she is one of the best fighters in the academy, Yuri asks him to go on a date with her. They later visit a replica of the Kyoto Float Temple because, during the alien invasion, there wasn't enough time to gather all the original artifacts. Yuri listens patiently, and seeing Kizuna determined to destroy the otherworldly beings, she tries to lighten up the mood, and the two spend their day roaming around the Megafloat. In the evening, they climb the view tower, where Kizuna asks Yuri why she wanted to travel on the Megafloat today. Yuri tells him that when she was attacked by the Magitech during their mission, she thought she was about to die. But when Kizuna saved her and even performed some lewd activities on her sacred temples, she decided that she would make the most of her life and experience everything, like falling in love. Later that night, Kizuna walks home from his date, scrolling through the pictures on his phone, when he spots Himekawa in the distance. As the two make their way toward the dorm together, Himekawa explains that she always stays behind late to make sure the boys keep their sausages in their pants. While Kizuna listens to her ramblings, Himekawa admits that she genuinely loves the academy and wants to make life enjoyable for all its students. Her words make Kizuna realize just how dedicated she is to her duties, and he compliments her. Caught off guard, Himekawa loses her balance, but Kizuna quickly saves her from cracking her head in two. Suddenly, Himekawa starts leaking oil underneath, which activates her heart hybrid gear. Just as she gets up in embarrassment, they hear a screaming sound nearby and investigate it, only to find Yin kickboxing in her room. Himekawa reveals that Yin has always been a loner and often trains by herself. Despite being a member of Amaterasu, she rarely hangs out with the other girls. This information makes Kizuna worried about Yin, as she seems to be struggling with something. On the other hand, Rari notices that Kizuna has managed to activate Himekawa's hybrid as well and plans for their next move. The following day in class, Kizuna tries to gather information about Yin, but none of them seems to know anything about her. Suddenly, Yin approaches him and sternly asks the limpy loser to join her in her park for lunch. Kizuna has no idea how to start a conversation with her, but Yin breaks the tension by offering him some sandwiches she made herself. After Kizuna devours all the sandwiches, Yin casually asks him to flip her around and slide his cylinder inside her. The boy gets flustered by this request, but Yin claims she read some magazines about what boys like to do with girls. Despite this, Kizuna is hesitant to make the first move, so Yin starts unboxing herself and reveals her chug containers. She then helps Kizuna to apply pressure on her watermelons, but the boy claims it's not ethical to get freaky outdoors. Yin clearly doesn't care what he says and claims she wants to become stronger than Himekawa and Yuri. So Kizuna finally agrees to her demands and starts draining the fluids out of her buns. But just as he is about to land a kiss, Yin turns around, and Kizuna backs off, realizing the girl is not ready for it. Just then, he gets a call from Rari, and she summons the loser to her office. He is immediately taken to a room where he underwent the core installation surgery for the heart hybrid gear in the past. Kizuna recalls how he was scared of being cut open, but he agreed to the surgery to make his mother happy. Then, he asks Rari about Yin's history and her hesitation to get pinned down. But the commander explains how there are no records of Yin's early life. Rari tells him that 7 years ago, the Academy found Yin by herself with no memories, so they brought her straight into the research lab. They conducted some experiments to identify Yin's origins, only to find out that she was extremely compatible with handling hybrid heart gears. Seeing the potential in her, Nayuta took her in and turned Yin into a lab rat. But a few years later, Nayuta suddenly disappeared, and they have no idea where she went. Hearing this, Kizuna finally understands that Yin has been alone from the very beginning and gets determined to help the chick with her trauma. But to give Kizuna some backstory of hybrid heart gears, Shikina shows him a secret video of another student who was forced to undergo core installation surgery. But during one of their missions, the boy's hybrid count dropped to 0, causing him to lose his life. However, seeing Nayuta treating the boy's death like a regular experiment, Kizuna jolts back to reality in a horrified state. He is notified that if the hybrid count of any Amaterasu member drops to 0, they will lose their life, and no one except Kizuna knows about it. Realizing that there's a ticking time bomb installed in their body, Kizuna reprimands Rary for her lack of humanity. However, Shikina tells him that this information was gathered only a few days ago. Despite this, Kizuna tells them to find another way, but Rary is hopeless because they don't have enough time to look for alternatives. She realizes that she is a cold-hearted commander, but claims that this is the crime she is willing to commit to save humanity. As Kizuma walks towards his dorm, he is shaken by the responsibility to save not just his harem's lives, but the lives of the entire human population. Meanwhile, Yin recalls an old memory with Dr. Nayuta, who once explained that her hybrid gear has a hidden weapon called Immoral, but it can only be activated once her hybrid count surpasses a certain threshold. So Nayuta encourages her to keep training, and the young Yin becomes excited for the day she can finally unleash that hidden power. Just then, the blare throughout the academy, putting the entire island on high alert. When Kizuna rushes to headquarters for an update, Rary informs him that the enemy forces have surrounded the area. Furious that Rary sent the girls into battle alone, Kizuna demands an explanation, but the commander tells him they must act strategically and asks him to stay calm. Meanwhile, the girls take their positions for battle, and Rary commands them to focus on the large alien mothership. She explains that they must destroy it before it gets close to their megafloat. As Yuri launches her attack, Himekawa and Yin follow suit, and together they manage to subdue an entire fleet of alien robots. But even amid the chaos, Yin seems distracted, still wanting to become stronger than her teammates. Just then, Yin comes in contact with a Draggery, but since her hybrid count has already dropped below 60%, Kizuna starts to panic. As she charges at the monster at full speed, Kizuna warns her to be careful, but Yin manages to destroy the Draggery with only 10% left in her tank, despite Kizuna ordering her to retreat immediately. Yin ignores him and dives straight into a swarm of alien robots. Desperate, Kizuna disobeys his commander and rushes out to help her. Yin eventually exhausts all her hybrid count and falls into the ocean below. She later wakes up in the Academy's laboratory, with Kizuna's dumb face staring at her. When he reveals that Yin took a direct hit from the enemy ship, she tries to get up and continue fighting, but Kizuna warns her that a squad of Magitech weapons is landing as they speak, making it far too dangerous to go back out. At this point, Yin realizes that her friends are far more stronger than her and breaks down in tears, admitting that fighting is the only thing she's ever been good at. As Kizuna lends her his support, Yin confides that she was brought to this megafloat years ago to serve as Dr. Nayuta's test subject, since experiments had dominated her life. Attempting normal human activities felt like a betrayal of her true purpose. When Kizuna asks why she does not have any close friends, Yin tells him that she would rather drink PP than have a conversation with someone. While Kizuna listens patiently, Yin reveals that whenever she did well in training, Dr. Nayuta would praise her, but today, her own teammates have gotten better than her when it comes to handling the gear. As they continue talking, Yin remembers Nayuta telling her that an incredibly powerful immoral weapon resides within her, accessible only with a high hybrid count. But since her hybrid count kept falling, she believed the weapon was impossible to unlock until Kizuna appeared. From that day on, Yin became determined to win his affection and raise her hybrid count, but she soon realized that her social skills were worse than a raccoon's. To improve herself, Yin started reading magazines that suggested making meals for Kizuna, so she bought some sandwiches from Amazon and packed them in a lunchbox. While Kizuna listens in shock, she reveals that she even tried following a book on how to impress a man and attempted some of its advice in front of him at the park, but Kizuna turned her down like a disgusting gentleman. Frustrated, Yin felt that all her efforts to reach the immoral weapon were useless and wondered if she had any reason to live. Instead of sympathizing with her, Kizuna yells at her for acting like a clown, but Yin insists that he doesn't understand her life. He tells her that everyone has a purpose, but the depressed chick tries to knock him out with a right hook. However, noticing that Kizuna hasn't moved an inch, she finally lets her guard down. Kizuna eventually shares his past, in which he was also a lab subject under his own mother, Dr. Nayuta, but after Yin arrived, he was sent back to the real world, leaving him depressed and unable to connect with anyone. This was when Rary reminded him that a person's value is not determined by their OnlyFans subscription cost, but by the choices they make. He then passes this lesson to Yin, telling her that she can start a brand new life, in which he will always be by her side. Finally, Yin gets a glimmer of hope and asks Kizuna to dislocate her backbone, and the freak slams her down before playing with her grumpy cat. This emanates a surge of energy to disperse from their vessels, but Yin wants more of that action. Just then, Shikina communicates through their hybrid system and informs him that sometimes, after a successful heart hybrid, the girl might get a little excited. It turns out that if Yin can reach another climax with Kizuna, she will unlock an even higher level of hybrid count. This will enable her to activate the immoral weapon Nayuta was talking about 7 years ago. Kizuna immediately gets ready for action and starts experimenting with his tongue, resulting in yet another explosion of hybrid energy in the laboratory. Meanwhile, Yuri struggles on the battlefield, barely holding her ground against the alien robots, but Yin arrives with moist legs as a much-needed reinforcement. Furious that her teammates were being pillaged, she activates the immoral weapon pulverizer and prepares to attack the enemies. While it loads like a Windows computer, Kizuna buys up time by taking down the approaching units, leaving both Yuri and Himekawa shocked at the sudden surge of Yin's power. A few hours later, Yin finally unleashes a massive beam from her weapon, obliterating the entire alien robot army. With the battle finally won, the Academy holds a celebration that night to celebrate their victory. Meanwhile, Kizuna seems lost in thought, so Yin meets him on the balcony and shares that she has been experiencing fragmented memories ever since they got frisky in the laboratory. She describes her visions of seeing a beautiful lake surrounded by mountains, a bustling city with bright lights, and a massive mechanical clock. But before she can get into some bedtime fantasies, Himekawa and Yuri show up, and they start arguing about who gets to sniff Kizuna's sausage that night. Being the rational one, Sylvia tries to mediate the conversation, but Kizuna tells her to let him enjoy the sight of birds fluttering. Meanwhile, inside the control room, Shikina notices a critical detail in the battle footage and informs Rary that one of the alien attackers appeared to be a human being, and the person was also wearing a heart hybrid suit. In a flashback, while Himekawa is guiding people out of their hometown, she notices an orphan, grabbing her teddy bear with tears pouring down her face. Seeing this, Himekawa assures her that she will defeat the enemies and protect all the people, making the girl incredibly happy. Meanwhile, Kizuna is inside the women's bathroom, preparing for a hot bath. Turns out he was granted the entire hot bath that night by his sister, and he happily entered the steamy room, but he ends up locking eyes with Himekawa, with her headlights and bumper on full display. She immediately hides her shame and yells at Kizuna for being in a woman's bathroom, but before he can explain his case, Himekawa activates her gear called Neros, resulting in an explosion in the bathroom. The following day, the two report the incident to Rary, who calmly admits that she wanted her students to be unboxed in the same bathroom, hoping to activate Himekawa's hybrid heart powers. Despite this, Himekawa continues to yell at Rary for her lack of common sense, but the headmaster reminds her that her hybrid heart count is extremely low. In a fit of rage, Himekawa walks out of the office, wondering how anyone could enjoy Kizuna's company. But she suddenly remembers the time he saved her from a nasty fall. Later, all the students are informed that all the world's megafloats have lost communication with one another. Himekawa is busy wondering which direction Kizuna's flagpole tilts, while the freak is determined to save all his harems if necessary. Moments later, Kizuna finds himself in the Academy's warehouse, where Rary shows him a new virtual simulator she's been developing. The machine can create any kind of environment, enabling the Amaterasu fighters to engage in realistic mock battles. However, Rary wants Kizuna to use this simulator to attract his team members and give them the time of their lives, while also activating their hybrid heart powers. Since the simulator can also learn from the player's desires, Rary appears in a bunny outfit, freaking out her brother to the core. Kizuna then invites Yuri as his first victim and changes the environment to an adult-themed room. As soon as their outfits change, Yuri gets in the mood, and she plants herself on top of Kizuna's sausage. Suddenly, the simulation puts her in a blindfold and handcuffs to make it more enticing for the heart hybrid activation. So Kizuna quickly squeezes the containers dangling in front of him, resulting in a golden aura emitting from their bodies. In just a few minutes, the heart hybrid activation is completed, and Yuri collapses on top of Kizuna like a sick dog. Later that evening, Himekawa notices two students trying to get naughty in the academy compound, and quickly stops them, since she is the leader of the disciplinary committee. Just as she is thinking about her miserable life, Kizuna shows up and asks if she'd like to engage in a virtual gagging ceremony. But before she can answer, Sylvia comes running in with her test results. Seeing the girl get outstanding grades, Kizuna pats her head and praises her, but Himekawa uses this opportunity to get away from Kizuna and his virtual fantasies. The next day, Rary calls every Amaterasu member into the war room and briefs them on a faint radio signal coming from Guam, an island that once housed a major US military base. Their new mission is to locate the source of that signal, and Yin declares she's ready to obliterate any enemies with her pulverizer this time. Yuri warns her that firing the immoral weapon will sap her energy completely, but Yin brushes it off, saying she'll just let Kizuna's golf stick rub against her to guarantee mission success. However, Yuri counters that it's her turn now and asks Kizuna to give her some nights to remember. But this ends up starting yet another argument among the girls. Shortly afterward, the Amaterasu team heads out for Guam, leaving Shikina and Rary wondering whether the mysterious signals were transmitted by Dr. Nayuta herself. When the Amaterasu team reaches the float, Kizuna and Himekawa begin scanning the city for samples, while Yuri and Yin sweep the abandoned Anderson Air Force Base. After some James Bond-type maneuvering through the ruins, Yuri and Yin discover the base is completely devoid of intelligent life, though they soon locate an ancient communication console blinking and beeping in a dark room. At the same time, Kizuna and Himekawa patrol the streets on foot, where Himekawa spots a small teddy bear lying in the road, and the sight instantly drags her back to the promise she made years earlier to rescue a terrified orphan. Suddenly, a strange sound interrupts them, and upon investigation, they stumble upon a blue-haired woman calmly sipping tea on top of a mound of rubble. Himekawa immediately assumes she's a stranded civilian and vows to get her to safety. But the woman rises with her tremendous-looking containers, introduces herself as Aldea, and without hesitation engages her heart hybrid gear. Stunned, Himekawa demands to know which nation she serves, but Aldea answers with pride that she hails from the Empire of Belantis, a power that already controls half the world. Despite her human appearance, Aldea fights for the invaders and launches a barrage of razor-sharp pebbles at the pair. Himekawa counters instantly, yet every strike she lands is effortlessly deflected, and she quickly realizes this Belantis chick is far stronger than she ever anticipated. The distant clash draws Yuri and Ah Yin racing over as reinforcements, but Aldea's eyes light up the moment she spots Ah Yin. Since her hybrid heart pulverizer gained enough publicity in the Belantis world, Aldea wants to have a conversation with Ah Yin about her abilities and true origins. But since the Amaterasu squad keeps pressing the attack, Aldea summons an enormous three-headed dragon to eliminate them. This is the same beast that obliterated the Tokyo float in Himekawa's watch, so she charges straight at it, while her teammates regroup and pour fire into the monster. However, their combined effort barely dents the dragon's armor. At this point, Kizuna realizes that the fight is unwinnable, so he tells the girls to retreat. As Amaterasu leaves, Aldea smiles in relief, as her own heart hybrid was running critically low. Back at the headquarters, Shikina briefs the team on Aldea and her unique heart hybrid gear, Ziru, which lets her teleport through space. Ah Yin suddenly connects the dots and realizes that Aldea was the one who trapped her and Himekawa inside that dome. Kizuna also chimes in, claiming that Aldea serves the Belantis Empire, which lies on the other side of the portal. As the group wonders what this might signify, Shikina drops another bombshell. The three-headed dragon outclasses even A-rank Magitech beasts, so they have no choice but to create an entirely new class called the Super Category class. The news hits Himekawa hard, as memories of her people's annihilation flood back, and she urges the commander to mobilize immediately. However, Rary shuts it down, declaring the day's operation finished for today. But when Himekawa continues demanding an explanation, Rary counters that discovering an unknown Magitech variant is a major breakthrough and tells her to cool her raging hormones. Despite all that, Himekawa starts ripping into everyone, calling them spineless cowards, and when the others try to calm her down, she snaps that they're weaker than Logan Paul. Later that night, Kizuna decides to check on the fired-up girl, only to find her door hanging wide open. He then pulls out his phone to ping her location, but is shocked to realize that Himekawa has already escaped from the megafloat. Meanwhile, Himekawa spearheads straight back to Guam and throws down a midnight challenge to Aldea. She demands the tri-headed dragon come out to play, but the Belantis chick smirks and says she'll toy with Himekawa first. The brawl erupts instantly, but every one of Himekawa's strikes bounces off like a fart in a hurricane. And in just a few minutes, Aldea has managed to capture her. Her hybrid blades seal Himekawa inside a labyrinth where space and time simply cease to exist. This enables Aldea to crush Himekawa's body from the outside, while the poor girl screams in pain. But just then, the rest of the Amaterasu crew members crash the party. Aldea immediately drops the cue to square up with Yuri, giving Kizuna just enough time to slap Himekawa awake. The girl's eyes tear up the second she sees him, and when she asks why they bothered saving her, Kizuna answers that comrades don't leave comrades behind. Meanwhile, Ah Yin leaps into the action as well, and Aldea seizes the opening to demand an introduction. When Ah Yin gives her name, Aldea gets excited, as she swears Ah Yin must be from the Belantis Empire, but Ah Yin insists she's 100% Earthborn human. To check if she's telling the truth, Aldea recites an old imperial oath to jog her memory, but Ah Yin finds this irritating and starts attacking her. However, Aldea summons the tri-headed dragon again and asks Ah Yin to erase it with her heart hybrid, Zeros. But as soon as the monster materializes, Himekawa tries to jump in, but since her hybrid count is extremely low, she decides to rest in peace. Right on cue, Rary arrives via helicopter and airdrops the simulation chamber beside Kizuna, so he can top off Himekawa's energy by ravaging her thick cakes. So, he quickly scoops her up, drags her inside, already itching for some trauma-fueled friction, but Himekawa starts blubbering about the mess she's made for everyone. Kizuna asks point-blank why she's obsessed with defeating the tri-head dragon, and she finally spills the beans. During the second collision, Himekawa was on evacuation duty for the Tokyo float when the dragon materialized and incinerated everything in its path. For years, Himekawa had swaggered around as Japan's top fighter, convinced she could defeat any monster. But watching the tri-headed dragon torch the entire Tokyo float shattered her illusion, and she started seeing herself as nothing more than a fragile snowflake, filled with ego and pride. Himekawa used to laze around and attend parties instead of training, but after the dragon incident, she became a highly disciplined student in hopes that she could rectify her mistake and protect people in need. But even after all that backstory, Himekawa was unable to save her fellow citizens back then and sure cannot save anyone with her annoying attitude right now. Hoping to clap her ferociously, Kizuna tells her that she has saved many people, including him, when she came to his rescue during their first encounter in the woods. While Himekawa listens patiently, Kizuna tells her that she's saved countless lives, and the reason she doesn't keep count is that she is a good person at heart. After the boring snooze fest, Kizuna tells her to get ready for some smackdown, and Himekawa finally lets him play with her jugs without restriction. While Himekawa is worried that he does not like her size, Kizuna lies to her, claiming her containers are worth dying for. As her hybrid heart is about to reach its full potential, Kizuna turns up the heat, leaving Himekawa drooling with satisfaction. However, to activate her immoral weapon, they have to perform an extremely lewd act, so Kizuna uses the simulator and transforms her into a cat girl. He then starts grabbing her tail like an idiot, which seems to give her more satisfaction. This fatherless behavior enables Himekawa to activate her immoral weapon, and she quickly transforms into her Nero's form. Then, as she steps onto the battlefield, Himekawa summons her immoral weapon called Gladius and, reminiscing about the time she was unable to save the orphan girl, she charges at the dragon and eliminates it in one strike. For the first time, Aldia feels threatened by her power and starts attacking Kizuna, but the loser starts panicking because his hybrid gear has no weapons that he knows of. However, Kizuna realizes he can summon a blade and gives it a shot, because after his fusion with the girls, he also gains some of their powers. Then, he partners up with his harems and manages to corner Aldia into submission, but unfortunately, she opens a gate and brings out several Magitech ships to defend herself. At the same time, a large underwater submarine emerges, but it turns out to be America's Heart hybrid units coming out as reinforcements. A few anti-aircraft jets are also hovering in the sky for backup. And seeing this, Rary gets a glimmer of hope. But before the battle can even begin, Aldia's partner, Grable, asks her to get her dumper back inside the ship. With no other options, Aldia reluctantly falls back along with the rest of her fleet, as the Amaterasu members are left confused. Later, the girls mock Himekawa for acting like Mia Khalifa in the simulation chamber, but she gets embarrassed and starts yelling out in words like an insane person. But just then, they are interrupted by the arrival of the American Heart hybrid units. Being an American citizen, Yuri greets the red-haired chick as her friend, Scarlet, but the girl tells Yuri to stay away and that she will never forgive her. Later that night, Yin has a strange dream where she's in a magical place with dark, evil energy hanging far off in the distance. She's wearing a fairy outfit, and when she reaches out to touch her reflection wearing a Zero's outfit, the mirror shatters. Yin jolts awake from this odd nightmare in the middle of the night and thinks back to the slogan Aldia shouted during the battle. Meanwhile, Aldia steps through the portal into the Belantis Empire and reports to Grable that the girl named Yin now controls the Magitech gear known as Zeros. Back at headquarters, Shikina is in her laboratory when she gets an anonymous tip about how to seal the portal gates, and with that info, Rary pushes for a joint US-Japan operation to take back Okinawa. The following day, Kizuna is enjoying lunch with Yuri when the Masters group joins them, Scarlet, Gertrude, and Sharon. It turns out they've enrolled at the academy for a joint mission, and Scarlet wants to get close to Kizuna so she can get some slippery smackdown and boost her hybrid count too. Kizuna is stunned to see girls desperate for his special mayonnaise, but Scarlet asks him to spend some private time with her. Seeing this, Yuri nearly starts a fight with Scarlet for messing up her date with Kizuna, but just then he spots Yin sitting alone at another table. Before he can do anything, the girls pull him outside and press their curves against his arms, arguing loudly over who gets to smell his armpits first. To sort out the argument, they visit an arcade shop, where they box against each other, play shooting games, and even compete on the dance floor. But the friends always tie somehow. Even when both of them are soaked in sweat, they keep wanting to go on with the contest. But soon enough, they calm down and head to a clothing store to try on some revealing swimsuits. Kizuna is surprised that even the swimsuits match in color, but right then, Scarlet pops open Yuri's swimsuit and drags Kizuna into a different changing room. She then pins him against the wall like Undertaker and tries to talk him into playing around with her, and a few seconds later, she drops into a position that most guys love. While Kizuna freaks out at how direct she is, Scarlet starts recharging her hybrid gear, but just then, Yuri walks in and catches them in the act. A few moments later, the three sit down for a talk, but Yuri can't stand Scarlet being there and decides to walk out. Kizuna assumes that she and Scarlet must have been good friends in the past, since they have the exact same score in every game. However, Scarlet quickly denies it and says Yuri is an awful person who treated them like pawns in past battles. She explains that their squad ran into a Draggery years ago, and none of them could handle it alone. Yuri sent them all in first to tire it out, then came in at the end to take all the credit for herself. However, Kizuna doesn't buy the story because the Yuri he knows wouldn't act like that. But Scarlet says she doesn't care about convincing him and heads back to the dorm. Just then, Yuri returns to the park, and when Kizuna asks if the story is true, she says there are different sides to the same truth. On the other side of the world, Aldia and Grable get a big welcome from the people of Belantis and are treated like royalty. But two fighters from the Empire, Rhaegar and Vard, are clearly furious at all the attention they're receiving from the people. A few hours later, Aldea and Grabble enjoy a fancy dinner to celebrate being together. They talk about their old battle where they left each other with lasting scars. But this soon turns into some fatherless behavior in their bedroom. The girls explore every part of each other's bodies without holding back, trading tongue twisters and guac guac for hours, filling the room with stinky bodily fluids. Back in the academy, Sylvia gives Kizuna some cookies that she prepared herself by watching a YouTube tutorial. Seeing her dedication, Kizuna comments that she will become a great wife, but this makes her realize that Kizuna wants to marry her. A short time after, Kizuna passes by Yin's room and sees her getting upset because she can't find any info about her life before the academy. The creep steps inside and kindly offers her some cookies, but Yin tells him to keep quiet. Just then, her stomach growls loudly like a Snorlax, and she finally gives in and eats them. But even while munching on the delicious cookies, Yin looks really mad for some reason and tells Kizuna to just ask whatever is on his mind. However, Kizuna says he won't pry unless she feels like sharing. This makes Yin feel a warm tingle between her legs, and Kizuna adds that he'll listen to her vent for hours if she lets him touch her special spots again. But just as they are about to hold hands, the sirens blare across the academy again, and Grable leaps from the battleship like a Bollywood actor. As Gertrude leads the teams to face the enemy, Grable demands they surrender the Zeros and the woman using it without a fight. However, when Sharon fires a shot from far away, Grable realizes that talking is useless and takes out dozens of units in seconds. By the time Amaterasu arrives, the area looks like Konoha village after the war with Akatsuki. At the same time, Scarlet sees her friends hurt and charges at the enemy recklessly. Unfortunately, the little redhead is no match for Grable, who's about to finish her off. But just then, Kizuna jumps in front and takes the blow like a Giga Chad. Amaterasu fights her directly, but both Himekawa and Yurei get tossed aside like insects. The upset Scarlet tries another attack, but she ends up wrecked too. At this point, only Yin and her Zeros are left on the field, and Grable closes in for the final strike. However, Kizuna pushes himself up, hoping to protect his girl, but gets knocked away like a golf ball. Grable finally gets to the point and offers Yin a spot in their empire if she wants to recall her past before the academy. On the other hand, Kizuna forces himself to fight Grable again, but just then, she notices her energy is low and quickly retreats, planning to return for Zeros next time. But as soon as she leaves, Kizuna passes out from sheer exhaustion and injuries, so Rary orders her staff to send rescue teams on the battleground right away. A few weeks later, Shikina briefs the squad about all the damage caused by Grable. Since the battle took place in a commercial area during a public holiday, they got lucky because only a few soldiers lost their lives that day. Just then, Kizuna enters the room with Dig-Bick energy, and everyone is thrilled to see him after his recovery. With everyone from Amaterasu gathered for a briefing, Rary explains that Grable is far stronger than Aldea, and that it's pretty clear she was after Yin and her heart hybrid gear Zeros for some unknown reason. To make matters interesting, even Yin herself has no clue why they're targeting her, and Kizuna feels a bit sorry for her. Furthermore, Rary explains that to reclaim mainland Japan, they need to close the Tokyo and Okinawa gates. But Grable is currently blocking their path, since this new enemy is ridiculously powerful. They'll need a brand new type of hybrid called the Connective Hybrid to beat her. Nobody in the room has ever heard of that. So Rary clarifies that for a fighter to achieve that state, Kizuna basically has to smash two dumpers at once. Yuri seems to love the idea of a combo smackdown, but Himekawa is completely against it. Seeing this reaction, Rary explains to the students that the Connective Hybrid links three heart hybrid bodies together, granting them the ultimate power the world has ever seen. Since this has never been tried before, Himekawa argues she doesn't want to do it with another girl, but Shikina assures her that sometimes even a deep act of friendship can trigger a Connective Hybrid. Apparently, the only way Amaterasu can beat Grable is by fusing their lewd powers together like a bunch of stray dogs, creating what could become a legendary, immoral weapon. Hearing this, Kizuna decides to clap Yuri and Scarlet first, knowing they share a solid history and a robust pair of juggernauts. Meanwhile, Scarlet and Sharon stand outside Gertrude's hospital room, as the poor girl was badly injured by Grable a few days earlier. Just as Scarlet starts blaming herself for Gertrude's condition, Kizuna calls her through the comms and asks her to meet him for a new training exercise. Scarlet agrees, but she was not prepared to sit in a bathtub with Yuri and Kizuna. She gets flustered sharing a bath and covers herself with her hands, but Yuri slides closer to Kizuna and presses her containers against him just to tease Scarlet. Her idea works flawlessly, and Scarlet jumps right into his lap. From above, Yuri joins in too, and the three practically turn into a human sandwich as Kizuna cuddles them both. This dumb act of rubbing three bodies together causes a blinding light to burst from their vessels, giving all of them a legendary happy ending. But since the girls always want more action after recharging their hybrid cores, Yuri unboxes herself, and Scarlet follows suit. However, Scarlet somehow loses her balance and falls right into Yuri's lap, making the situation even more awkward. Yuri, of course, assumes it was intentional and recalls how Scarlet used to follow her everywhere and call her senpai. Just then, the simulation chamber starts showing flashbacks of when they were close friends, and Kizuna reveals that he asked Shikina to load those clips to reignite their lost friendship. Seeing all their memories and emotions replay before her eyes, Scarlet is hit by nostalgia and hugs Yuri, realizing she's not the kind of person who'd betray her comrades. On top of that, Kizuna clears up their main misunderstanding, assuring Scarlet that Yuri had no idea a Dragray would show up that day. Finally, Yuri shares her side of the story. It turns out the enemy had launched missiles in a densely populated area, and Yuri didn't want her squad to witness the massacre, which is why she sent Scarlet and the others ahead. However, Yuri admits that while she didn't use them as pawns, she did take the credit for the final blow and used it to rise as America's best fighter during the war. Despite that, Scarlet remembers how Yuri got hurt fighting other enemies and still risked her life to rescue her, which helps Scarlet forgive her. With their emotional baggage finally at rest, both of them turn their attention to Kizuna, who gives them a finger special until their sprinkler hydrates the entire room. After the climax, the three of them successfully achieve a connective hybrid and are ordered to launch an immediate operation to defeat Grable. Meanwhile, Grable and Aldia await Amaterasu's attack and are greeted by Ayin, who's taking on the magic tech weapons all by herself. She asks Grable why she offered to take her to Batlantis, but before she can answer, Yuri and Scarlet crash the party. They send Ayin to guard the entrance and bombard Grable with dozens of homing missiles. Aldia blocks them easily with her shield, but Yuri whips out her immoral weapon for the first time and charges forward. Aldia blocks again, but this time, Yuri has gained immense power from her knockers and ends up knocking out her shield, while Aldia goes down unconscious. Grable emerges from the smoke completely unscathed and vows to use her full power against them. She then draws her own immoral weapon and fires a massive beam, but Kizuna arrives just in time to block it. Recognizing him from their previous encounter, Grable powers up once again, but Kizuna activates a new mode in his gear and takes the fight into the sky. With this mode, Kizuna is basically unbeatable, as it looks like he's carrying an entire military unit in his back pocket. As the two clash mid-air, it looks like Grable might actually break through his shield. In that desperate moment, Kizuna manages to summon Scarlet's homing missiles and blasts her away. As they both free fall, Kizuna is caught mid-air by Scarlet, and even though Grable is badly injured, she's more worried about Aldia's safety. So she carries her partner and yeets themselves out of there, giving Amaterasu the chance to close all the Okinawa gates. With the battle finally won, Yuri and Scarlet can't stop praising Kizuna for his bravery, while Himekawa still can't believe he slept with two girls at the same time. On the other hand, Ayin drifts off in her own thoughts, wondering what her true identity is. A few days later, Shikina explains that two megafloats, one from Japan and one from America, are currently guarding their coastal cities. However, Rari has bigger ambitions. After liberating Guam and Okinawa, she plans to move on to the Japanese mainland and orders the Amaterasu squad to prepare for a massive operation, with Tokyo as their next target. Later, Kizuna presents his ideas for the cafeteria menu to a class of boys for the upcoming school festival, but none of them seem even remotely interested in his ideas. Realizing that the boys need a little more motivation, Kizuna shows them a hologram of the Amaterasu girls without any coverings or covering their identities. Kizuna explains that he created these images using the data from the simulation room and even shows them a heat graph of the most sensitive areas. In a girl's vessel, the presentation turns the entire class into a collective brick wall, and Kizuna continues explaining how location also plays a major role in making a girl comfortable. At this point, the boys wonder if Kizuna is some kind of ladies superstar, but the loser himself couldn't care less. To make things worse, he even shows them recorded footage of when he clapped Himekawa in the middle of a battle. But before anyone can finish drooling, Himekawa storms into the classroom in her narrow suit, scares the life out of the degenerates, and turns the entire class into a charcoal mine. Meanwhile, Rari watches the whole festival through the security cameras and sees Himekawa chasing Kizuna for his ridiculous stunt. Later, the bruised-up Kizuna runs into Yuri, who points out that the bandage on his face actually looks kind of cool. However, he shrugs it off since he doesn't want to embarrass Himekawa further. She immediately berates him for his classroom nonsense, but nobody at this school cares about degeneracy anymore. However, they then mention it's time for their music rehearsal, and that Ayin is missing. Kizuna double-checks if they searched all the major hangout spots, and when the girls insist they have, he volunteers to find Ayin himself and bring her back to the festival grounds. On the way, he runs into Gertrude, who's still recovering from her fight with Grable and now moves around in a wheelchair. After checking on her, he asks if she's seen Ayin, but the poor girl can barely see past her left racket. Moments later, Kizuna stumbles upon a group of girls rehearsing a horror movie scene, but they freak out at the sight of this creepy guy and start screaming like over-caffeinated programmers. Just then, Sylvia pops out pretending to be a ghost and runs into Kizuna. He immediately decides to use her as a replacement for Ayin if she doesn't show up. Sylvia has never refused Kizuna's orders, so after thinking for a few seconds, she agrees to join the Amaterasu band. As Kizuna continues his search, he meets the Academy's top engineer, Momo, who forces him to test a new Railgun prototype she's been working on. Unfortunately, the cannon is still in beta, and it blows up right in Kizuna's face. After searching every corner for Ah Yin, Kizuna finds Shikina in a private booth selling moist magazines featuring pictures of him and the Amaterasu girls. But when he asks if she's seen Ah Yin, Shikina silently scribbles on a notepad saying she has no clue. Later, Kizuna checks out Scarlet's maid Calf, hoping Ah Yin might be there, but the girl is literally nowhere to be found. It turns out that the cafe was just another useless distraction, so the hopeless Kizuna ends up sitting by a window, waiting and hoping Ah Yin will appear. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, Grabble is chained up and labeled a traitor for attacking Earth without permission and keeping information about Zeros to herself. With the punishment complete, Zelshinon, the ruler of Batlantis, declares it's time to attack the mainland and reclaim Zeros, even if it means destroying the entire float. Despite the risk involved, Grable makes a bold statement, telling her boss that civilians should not be harmed. This causes Zelshinon to raise an eyebrow in shock, and she orders her men to punish Grable by hanging her up like a Thanksgiving turkey and whipping her until her skin practically disintegrates inside her body. Grable tries her best to endure it, holding on to the belief that Aldea will come to save her. But her hopes shatter completely when she learns that Aldea has already been brainwashed into Zelshinon's loyal lapdog. After extracting some crucial information from Grable, Zelshinon gathers a squad of underdog villains from earlier to invade what they call Lemuria and retrieve the power of Zeros. But just as she's about to depart, Zelshinon is stopped by Dr. Nayuta and her assistant. Back on Earth, it's concert time, but Ah Yin is still missing, so they decide Sylvia will take the stage instead. Kizuna finally gives up searching, only to find Ah Yin sitting alone in an empty classroom. He asks why she looks so down, and Ah Yin reveals that all the memories she's recovered so far suggest she doesn't belong to this world. The confusion is eating her alive, so she tells Kizuna to refrain from clapping her anymore. But Kizuna wants to help her break free from her trauma and tries to convince her to give it one more chance. As the concert kicks off on stage, Kizuna starts draining the fluids from Ah Yin's airbags, but during this euphoric chaos, she begins having flashes of fractured memories from her past. Ah Yin has no idea what's happening to her, and it looks like she's suffering intensely. But before Kizuna can comfort her, Rary contacts him and reports a massive enemy attack on the mainland, ordering him to assemble a battle squad immediately. Just a few minutes later, as Amaterasu's fighters soar through the sky to face the enemy troops, Kizuna is stunned when he spots his mother, Dr. Nayuta, standing aboard the enemy battleship. As Kizuna lands on the enemy battleship to confront his mother, nobody can understand why she has appeared after so many years. Nayuta greets her son like a business partner, leaving Kizuna completely baffled, while Yuri wonders if they should step in. Himekawa believes it is better to let Kizuna handle this one on his own. Inside the enemy battleship, Dr. Nayuta reveals that it has been 7 years and 21 days since she last saw Kizuna, and explains that she had to go to the Batlantis Empire to complete her research. But Kizuna is not about to let her off the hook so easily, demanding answers to all the questions piling up in his head. When he asks what she is doing on an enemy ship, Nayuta calmly replies that she is simply conducting fieldwork. At that moment, Kizuna flashes back to his last encounter with his mother and claims that there are a lot of things he needs to clear up with her. He asks her to return to Ataraxia, but Nayuta refuses, saying her research is still incomplete. At this point, even Rary breaks through the comms, angrily demanding to know why she is helping the enemy. But Nayuta tells her she cannot reveal sensitive information to a bunch of idiots. That was Rary's last straw, and she orders Kizuna to abduct his mother. But it turns out that he has been talking to her hologram the entire time. Her own blood is begging her for answers, yet Nayuta only tells them to come to Tokyo if they want to see her in the flesh, then disappears faster than your salary on payday. As soon as she leaves, the squad is attacked by an annoying-looking creature called Ragers and her Magitech pilot, Demon. Before the fight can escalate, the battleship suddenly turns around and starts flying away, leaving Ragers fuming in frustration. Nayuta tells her that their only goal was to talk, and capturing Zeros was never part of the plan. At that point, Vard asks if they will still go to Tokyo despite the risk of an ambush, and Haida confidently says they most definitely will. Back at headquarters, Rary explains that the plan to retake Tokyo might have been a setup, and the revelation shocks everyone in the room. She reveals that they received an anonymous tip about how to restore hybrid heart counts and close the gates, and all evidence points toward Dr. Nayuta being behind it. But even though Tokyo might be a trap, they have no choice but to go since there are no other loose ends. Ah Yin sternly says she will follow orders no matter what, then leaves the room, haunted by the painful memories that resurfaced after getting clapped by Kizuna. Meanwhile, Rary tells Kizuna to pick a new Amaterasu member because they need more firepower to win this war. She is aware that whoever he chooses will be risking their life, and hands him a list of qualified candidates so he can decide who to tap next. After a thorough examination, Kizuna approaches Sylvia and asks her to become a heart hybrid pilot, since she has the aptitude for it. Sylvia is thrilled at the opportunity, but Kizuna advises her to think carefully because the mission could cost her life. However, the girl misunderstands his concern as a lack of faith in her abilities and dramatically runs off without giving an answer. Kizuna eventually catches up to her, and explains that he simply does not want anyone he cares about to die. Sylvia reveals that she has always wanted to join Amaterasu so she could search for her parents, who went missing in London, and begs Kizuna to let her join. Seeing the determination in her eyes, Kizuna takes her to the simulation chamber and shows her the core he is about to install in her. Without hesitation, she tells him to go ahead and do what he must. Later, as Sylvia rests, Kizuna vows to protect her and everyone else with any means necessary. The day before the mission, Momo arrives with anti-magitech rifles and railguns for the Master's group, and Scarlet is confident that with this weaponry, they can reclaim Tokyo. Meanwhile, Kizuna notices Ah Yin staring out at the sea and reminds her that it is time for her daily dose of friction pumps. But the girl tells him that she will never let him near her vessel again. Ah Yin admits it was a mistake to cry in his arms over a weird dream and insists that she will be fine on her own, though deep down, she is only saying this to make him stop worrying. Elsewhere, Himekawa tells Yuri that she was initially scared of returning to her hometown, but Kizuna made her feel at home even in the middle of a battle. Yuri admits that his monster truck is something else, saying it made her realize it is okay to rely on others. A few moments later, Kizuna visits the surgery room where his core was first installed and remembers the time he saw Ah Yin crying. He had asked her why she was sad, and a young Ah Yin told him she could not remember anything from her past. Kizuna promised to help her regain her memories, and also recalls how stubborn she used to be in the past. The following day, as the squad prepares to depart for Tokyo, the Academy's sirens start blaring and giant alien robots begin climbing the ship. All personnel across the city go on high alert, and for a moment, it seems the aliens are overwhelming the missile defenses. Scarlet slices through the invading robots with her weapon and tells the Amaterasu members to proceed to Tokyo, while she stays behind to defend the Academy. Realizing this is the best course of action, the squad changes into their outfit and takes off like superheroes, while Rary quietly worries about how this operation will end. On the way, they encounter several mechanical drones, and Kizuna tells the girls to stick to the plan. As they split up, Kizuna flies extremely close to the ocean and notices how the sky is filled with enemies. This makes him realize that staying low is the safest approach, so he dives into an abandoned train tunnel to avoid detection. Once inside, he plants signal points throughout the city, allowing the tech team the headquarters to receive coordinates from Tokyo. Finally, Rary can deploy the sealing units to close all the gates, and the Master's group is sent to escort them. On the other side, Kizuna emerges from the tunnels onto the main street, bracing himself for a city swarming with alien robots. Instead, he is shocked to find a lively metropolis full of cheerful people going about their day as if nothing were wrong. Some people are even lining up to buy groceries and Christmas decorations. For a moment, it feels like the alien invasion never happened, as if all the destruction and chaos were just a bad dream. But that illusion shatters instantly when Kizuna hears someone call his name. Looking up, he spots his mother, Neyuda, standing on top of a building with her assistant Vard. Frustrated, Kizuna demands that his mother stop playing games and explain what's really going on. Since Tokyo was supposed to have been destroyed 7 years ago, he cannot understand how everything is suddenly back to normal. Seeing him lose his mind, Neyuda finally ends the illusion, and within seconds, the city returns to its true form, ruined and lifeless. She then explains that she used magic to show him a reflection of what Tokyo once looked like. Despite this explanation, Kizuna still notices people in the streets smiling and celebrating, completely unaware of their surroundings. So Neyuda clarifies that the illusion magic only excluded him, meaning everyone else is still trapped inside her artificial dream for eternity. While Kizuna listens in disbelief, Neyuda casually explains that the phenomenon allows her to absorb people's life energy, which she converts into magic and sends to Batlantis to manufacture an iPhone. Neyuda explains that she plans to extract life energy from every country, turning the entire planet into an enormous energy harvesting farm. Enraged by her callousness, Kizuna yells at her, demanding that she stop playing with innocent lives. He begs her to return to Ataraxia and teach them how to remove the cores implanted in their chests. But Neyuda admits that she doesn't know how because she didn't create the cores in the first place. According to her, the heart hybrid gears are rare artifacts from another world, and she merely built a system that allows ordinary humans to channel their life energy through them. Realizing that he might never be able to save everyone, Kizuna breaks down for a second before lunging at Neyuda in anger. But right as his punch is about to connect, Vard catches him like a basketball and slams him into a nearby building with inhuman strength. At that moment, Ragers arrives with reinforcements, forcing Kizuna to retreat so that innocent civilians aren't caught in the crossfire. He then lures the enemies to a deserted area where an intense battle begins. Just as he's backed into a corner, the Amaterasu squad arrives to support him, and the real fight kicks off. Meanwhile, the Master's squad is busy sealing the gates when they detect a massive surge of magical energy and prepare to defend their equipment. On the other side of the battlefield, Ragers overpowers Himekawa and Yuri in a matter of seconds, leaving Ah Yin to face her alone. Ah Yin throws everything she has at the enemy, pushing her gear to the limit, but she's clearly outmatched against his medium-sized milkers. But when Ragers prepares to deliver the final blow, a bright white beam shoots from the sky, striking Ragers and interrupting the attack. A new mech descends from above, piloted by Sylvia in her freshly installed Heart Hybrid gear, Taros. She confidently tells Kizuna to stand back and promises that she won't let anyone harm her friends. Despite being new to combat, Sylvia fights with incredible precision. Her attacks are fierce, and one by one, she lands direct hits on Rhaegar's, damaging her robot and injuring her face. At one point, Rhaegar stumbles, unable to comprehend how a rookie could possibly defeat her. Humiliated and furious, she declares that she would rather die than lose to a mere amateur and activates her mech's self-destruct mechanism. Sylvia quickly ejects Rhaegar's from her machine, but it's too late because the robot launches vertically and detonates, creating a massive explosion capable of erasing the entire region. From the control tower, Rhaegar watches helplessly, knowing there's no way to stop the blast. But Sylvia refuses to give up and activates her immoral weapon called Titania. Within seconds, Sylvia summons a colossal divine figure in the sky, surrounded by a glowing coffin-shaped void. This massive construct generates a gravitational field strong enough to consume the explosion itself. Within seconds, the devastating blast is absorbed into the void, neutralizing the threat completely, and Sylvia saves millions of lives with a single, breathtaking maneuver. In the meantime, Mayuta is observing the spectacle with intrigue, taking notes alongside Vard. She claims that she looks forward to meeting her son again, but on the battlefield, the situation is completely different. Before the squad can catch its breath, new Magitech weapons appear on the horizon. Seeing that the Amaterasu members are completely drained, Rary decides to send them a portable simulation chamber for an emergency pump and dump scheme. Since Himekawa's hybrid count is the lowest, Kizuna takes her in first, while Ayin watches from outside, quietly jealous of her. Even in the middle of a heated battle, flashes of Kizune's champagne popping run through her mind, making her cheeks burn with embarrassment. Meanwhile, inside the chamber, Kizuna focuses on restoring Himekawa's energy through physical synchronization. Their bodies move in sync, and the simulation chamber glows with the rising energy output. When Himekawa's synchronization is complete, she and Kizuna exit the chamber, only to be greeted by Yuri teasing them. She jokes that Himekawa always takes forever to recharge and wonders if she's more versatile than Bonnie Blue. However, Himekawa gets flustered and claims that she only participates in these acts because it's vital for the survival of humankind. Before anyone can respond, Ayin approaches him and drags him back inside the simulation chamber. Her tone is serious this time, and she wants Kizuna to dislocate her back, claiming it's the only way to activate her immoral weapon. Just then, the room transforms into a classroom, and it seems Yin's fantasy is to be filled with mayonnaise in class of all places. Kizuna doesn't waste time explaining her strange fantasies and immediately starts draining her energy containers, completely ignoring the other students walking past them. While the entire class sits quietly, Kizuna feels satisfied. After all, Yin's fantasy has always been about overcoming her fears. Just as they are getting frisky, the teacher calls Yin to the front to solve a problem, and for a moment, Yin becomes mortified because her dumpers are visible from a certain angle. However, the embarrassment strangely excites her, which ends up boosting her hybrid count. Outside, Yuri contacts Celia to check on her, only to discover that she too has fallen under Zelshion's mind control. A few moments later, Yin complains that she needs to go for a quickie and can't hold it back any longer. But the sadist in question transforms the entire room into an auditorium, with the entire academy facing right at them, eager to see Yin spraying from between her legs. Even though she is about to hit climax, Yin can't seem to concentrate, as a storm of emotions surges inside her. However, when Kizuna tells her that everything will be fine as long as they are together, Yin finally lets loose. This sends her into a whole other reality for some time. But when she wakes up, Kizuna tells her that her climax hybrid failed. Yin's first instinct is to blame herself for interrupting the process multiple times, but Kizuna tells her that's not true. When they finally come out of the chamber after a few hours, they are shocked to find all their friends, including Sylvia, defeated by the Zelshinon chick. Just then, Zelshinon appears and introduces herself as the captain of the Royal Guard. She explains that she's trapped the girls in a deep hypnotic trance, forcing their souls to battle for survival inside their own minds. In her illusion, Himekawa awakens in a desolate Tokyo. A three-headed dragon looms before her, while a little girl accuses her of destroying the city. Soon the shadows of the dead begin to crawl out of the rubble, closing in on her as guilt and horror consume her. On the other hand, Yuri finds herself desperately trying to reach Scarlet and her squad as they fight a Draggery. But by the time she arrives, her comrades have already been wiped out, leaving her with crushing remorse. Back at headquarters, Momo reports that most of the Master's squad has been annihilated, but before they can make sense of the situation, they're suddenly attacked by an enemy Magitech unit. Out on the battlefield, Zelshinon makes an offer to Kizuna and his team. She'll spare their lives if they agree to let Batlantis extract magical energy from them while trapping them in a fabricated paradise created by Nayuta's illusions. However, Kizuna refuses, declaring that it's better to live in a painful reality than surrender to a beautiful lie. Amused by this response, Zelshinon turns to Yin and asks if she even knows where her core truly came from. When Yin fails to answer, Zelshinon decides to show her the truth herself, and just when Yin loses consciousness, Kizuna vows to make Zelshinon pay for her crimes. He then activates his heart hybrid gear, ready to risk his life for his favorite pair of dumpers. In her vision, Yin follows a younger version of herself down a dimly lit hallway, eventually discovering that her core had already been implanted before Dr. Nayuda ever found her. As she stands before a massive gate, Zelxion watches with twisted amusement, remarking on how far Kizuna is willing to go for the one he loves. Before Yin can open the gate, her past self warns her that once she learns the truth, she may never be the same again. Yin hesitates at first, but then remembers Kizuna offering her his hand long ago, rekindling her resolve. Meanwhile, Kizuna is being overwhelmed on the battlefield by waves of Magitech units. Despite the exhaustion, he forces himself to keep fighting. Zelxion, impressed by his persistence, decides to reward him by lashing him until his gear shatters into smithereens. Beaten and barely conscious, Kizuna despairs over his failure to protect everyone, but in his weakest moment, he somehow establishes a telepathic link with Himekoa, Yuri, and Sylvia inside their trances. That connection triggers a powerful transformation, and Kizuna achieves a new form of heart hybrid gear, Shikina. Monitoring from headquarters confirms that he's performed a climax hybrid with all three girls simultaneously, without even physical contact. Empowered by this unity, Kizuna unleashes a devastating assault, eradicating hundreds of Magitech units in seconds. His power becomes so overwhelming that even Zelxion struggles to match him. Eager to test her limits, she unleashes her full strength. But the immense power takes its toll, and Kizuna's gear begins to crack and falter. Sensing an opportunity, Zelxion seizes control of Yin's body, knowing Kizuna won't dare to fight her directly. Inside her subconscious mind, Yin finally understands that Kizuna had been protecting her all along, even in the past. But her realization is abruptly interrupted by the sight of her body, now under Zelxion's control, attacking Kizuna. Terrified, she rushes to open the door and regains control of her body the instant she steps through. Her energy surges beyond its limits, and even her hair turns into a stupid shade of pink like Jigglypuff. At this point, Zelxion lunges to stop her, but Kizuna protects Yin, giving her the space to ascend. Hovering above the battlefield, Yin unleashes a colossal wave of energy that eradicates all remaining magic in the area. Those trapped under mind control are finally freed, and one by one, the portals to Batlantis begin to collapse. With the enemy's invasion cut off and the gates to the other dimension permanently sealed, the fights of Ataraxia finally reclaim Tokyo. As the dust settles, Kizuna and Yin stand together, quietly celebrating the sacrifices and victories they had to go through. If you watched this anime recap until the end, comment down bro what. If you like anime recaps like this, watch this video.